Good afternoon and welcome to Nora's Dog Training Company. We're here today with Bennett and Rich, and what we're going to be demonstrating for you today on video is Bennett's ability to understand and respond to her formal on-leash obedience commands, the correction and the motivation that we give the dogs when we're working with them, and the training equipment that we're using. Rich is using a regular 6-foot web training leash, and he keeps the bulk of that leash folded neatly in his right hand. That leaves his left hand free to give any correction that's needed. And the only correction that we give is a little tug and release on the training collar. And that is the second piece of equipment that we're using. Bennett's going to come home with her very own training equipment, and you're going to be taught how to use that tomorrow during your follow-up training session. Now, she's sitting very nicely at Rich's left, which is where all of our obedience training is done. And the first exercise that we're going to demonstrate for you is heeling. Heeling is very important to our Sea Isle folks because of the fact that they're walking their dogs in such crowds. So her heeling is very important. The command is Bennett, heel.
Bennett, heel.
Now at this point, Bennett has a job to do, and that is to maintain pace with you when walking. She shouldn't be forging ahead. She shouldn't be dragging you down the street. She should be walking nicely at your left. If you turn, she should turn. We throw in turns to keep her focused and on point. And each time that you stop your feet, she's been taught to sit automatically without being told to wait for her next command. So this makes walking with your dog a pleasure. You're not being dragged down the street. She's walking nicely at your pace. When you stop, she sits. And you can enjoy nice walks with her. Now, the next command that we're going to demonstrate for you is a sit-stay. The stay is a hand and a voice command, and because it is a stationary exercise, it is a one-word command. You can practice this indoors as well as outdoors. You're going to start out at about 45 seconds and work all the way up to 3 minutes. When you return back to her, Rich is going to walk all the way around her as an additional distraction, and she is to remain seated until he gets back to her shoulders. He stops, and you see her look up at him for direction, and he will tell her what he wants her to do next, and they take off heeling again. She stays right at his side no matter what he does. If he speeds up, slows down, changes direction, she stays right with him, and when he stops, she sits. He slows down.
Stay.
He leaves her in another sit-stay, and these stay exercises are for self-control, focus, maturity. We've treated them very much as individuals because they are. So they're not joined at the hip. They both have their, different learning curves and all of that. This time, instead of returning back to her, Rich is going to do the come on command. You're going to use her name, you're going to lighten her tone of voice, and she comes in and sits right in front of you, facing your knees instead of jumping all over. And then she returns back to heel and back sitting. So again, all of these commands are self-control commands. They teach her to have focus and self-control and maturity, and that's what you were basically lacking with these kids. They're both good dogs. Very sweet, very pleasant. Rich leaves her in another sit-stay, and he will demonstrate that come-on command again for you. Now you notice he really lightens his tone, and she's very focused on him, looking up at him, back to heel and back sitting. What a good girl. Now the next commands that we're going to demonstrate for you are a little bit more difficult. These are the down commands. They take a little bit longer to teach. Now the way you're going to do this is a down from a heel position. So with the dog seated at your left, you're going to use your left open palm straight down toward the ground on the one-word command to down and stay. Now your long down stay when you're practicing at home, and you're not going to have a practical application to practice downs outside probably. So practice your downs right in your living room. Put your dogs on leashes and make them do this. You're going to work all the way up to a 5-minute long down stay. When Rich returns back to her, he walks all the way around her just as he did on the sit stay to return all the way back to heel. He stops at her shoulders. You can see those little eyes look up at him like, what are we going to do next? And he'll heel her out of that. He's going to bring her back around and demonstrate that down from a heel again. So remember, always have your dog seated before you put her into a down. If she doesn't sit, he gives that little tug I talked about, and you could barely see it on the video. Down and stay. He leaves her. This weather, the dogs can't get their body temperatures adjusted. It's hot, it's cold, it's raining. Rich is going to call her out of that down. Good girl. Right in and sits. You see, so they're capable of a lot more than you give them credit for. They're very, very smart pups, and they did a great job. Now, the last command that we're going to be demonstrating for you is your distance down. This is probably one of the harder exercises because you're not right next to your dog. So you're going to leave her in a sit stay. You're going to turn to face her. You're going to use your right hand to give the command.
Down.
And you're going to drop her into a down from a distance and then tell her to stay. Now, we have demonstrated for you all of Bennett's formal on-leash obedience commands. We know you're going to have a ton of other questions. All of those questions will be answered for you tomorrow when you come to pick the dogs up from school. We've enjoyed having them. They've been a pleasure. And we will see you soon. Thank you for choosing Nora's Dog Training Company.